questions to me so that I can get to them. I'm going to be answering questions at the end so that I can make sure and capture as many as possible. So, but we will get started here in a second. Yes. And it is being recorded. Yes, it is. Okay. All right. I'm going to give it like 1 or 2 more minutes just to allow the people that are planning on attending live to get here. More. Okay, it is recording. Okay. All right. All right. 1 more minute. All right. I feel like there should be game show music going. If you have not met me before, you will learn I'm a goofball. I make lots of terrible dad jokes, mom jokes. So that was one of them. All right, it's 4:05. I'm going to get started. Welcome to the Defying Defensiveness. Just as I say, start my thing, people are showing up. Welcome. I'm just going to keep letting people come in as they come in. And if you are coming in after the beginning and you miss anything, just go back and watch that. Post any questions you have in the chat. You can choose either to me directly if you want it to be private between us, in which case I will make your question anonymous. I won't say anything. Or you could post it to the whole group because I think there will probably be common questions. And you are all muted by me. You have the option of turning your camera on or off. When we do the exercise and process, you have the option again of turning your camera on if you want me to see you and give you feedback about what I'm seeing. Feedback is always offered in a sort of an understanding that we all struggle with this. And so anyway, those are my main points. This is not a therapy session. This is a coaching workshop. So it isn't a replacement for therapy. Now I've said all the caveats. So welcome. I'm really happy to have you here. I am doing this Defying Defensiveness class because defensiveness is something that we all struggle with in our relationship. It is, and I'm going to go into all the reasons why that's true. And there are some easy things to know that can help cut through it, depending on how intensely you struggle with defensiveness in your relationship, how big a problem this is. For you, you may want to get additional support, and in which case, just reach out to me at any point. This class is ideally meant to be offered for couples together, for you to watch together and work on together. But I understand that some people are sort of gung-ho about watching it themselves and taking it back to their partner. And hopefully that is, for those of you that are doing it that way, it's as helpful for you in that regard as well. So, all right, with no further ado, so why am I doing this workshop? It is a human need for us to feel heard and understood. That is something that's why we're in relationship. And defensiveness gets in our way about that. I'm also doing this because listening is a team sport. It takes both of you to hear each other. It takes the talker to talk in a way that the person can hear, and it takes the listener understanding how to do this. We take listening for as a skill for granted, and it's actually quite difficult. I just ended a session with a couple, and all we worked on for the 90 minutes we were together was listening, because they're really struggling with that. So it's hard for everybody. And over my 25 years, I have seen and understood the patterns. And so I think that I can be of help to you in learning how to do this. And then finally, learning to prevent defensiveness is way easier and a way better use of your time than responding to defensiveness and trying to get out of defensiveness. So that's one of the powerful things that I want to help you understand. I said this at the beginning, and if you're joining late, I'm going to answer all questions at the end. Feel free to post them in the comments. All right, so who the heck am I? I'm Carolyn Sharp. I am a therapist. I am a coach. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm a dog mom. Um, I lead retreats. I teach workshops. Amateur chef. I just finished writing a book, which will be published in January of next year. That's January 5th, 2025. Nice round number. Anyway, so that's who I am. I have years and years of experience helping couples and helping people who aren't couples learn healthier relationship skills. And it's a real passion of mine. So that's about me. I'm a Ted Lasso fan. I call myself the Roy Kent of couples work. I have created the Secure Connections coaching program. After being a therapist for so many years, I realized there were patterns of things that couples didn't know how to do, that humans in general didn't know how to do. And so I created these workshops and these coaching programs to teach couples before they're in crisis, so that I'm trying to work myself out of a therapy job by helping couples before they need therapy help. So that is my love and passion, to help prevent problems. All right, so let's get into defensiveness. Why does defensiveness happen? Um, what is the deal with this? And the reality, the truth is, sharing a life is hard, because being an adult human is hard. And doing so with another adult human is even harder, doubly hard, exponentially harder. Uh, People are difficult. Human beings are a disaster of a species. We are by nature sort of selfish and self-oriented. That's how we've stayed alive. We are sort of tribal, in not the negative sense of the word, just the understanding that that's how we survived as a species, was collecting in groups, and we protected ourselves by defending against other groups. And that is built into our DNA. So we tend to take an us versus them mentality, individual to individual. Boy, there are lots of examples of looking at that, regardless of what political affiliation you have. You can see sort of that orientation all around us right now. Communication is a skill. And by that, I mean that it is a process of steps that we need to learn and practice. People take it for granted that we should just know how to do it, but in reality, we learned that skill by what we were taught explicitly, in terms of, say please and thank you. We might have been explicitly told to use our manners. We may have been explicitly told children should be heard, seen and not heard. That's from my upbringing. Um, or we may have been taught implicitly that it's not safe to be angry. It's not safe to talk about our emotions. It's not safe to be direct and ask for what you need. So we learned these skills through how we were raised. And understanding that helps explain why we do the things that we do. Many of us were not taught in the best ways, though our parents did the best. They were taught what they were taught, and going back generations, they're doing the best. We're all doing the best we can with what we were given. And many of us, as we grow, need to learn new skills. We need to grow out of the skills we used to use as kids and adolescents and young adults. We need to refine and grow in our communication skills. Nothing challenges this more than relationship. And so with all of that, is it any wonder that the stuff between us, the shit between us, because I swear, is it any wonder that that goes sideways? It shouldn't be. We all struggle with this. So let me state the obvious. And this is the foundation, these ideas. I'm drinking a Diet Coke because I've been in back-to-back sessions and I want to stay awake and alert. So I'm drinking a Diet Coke, which is causing me to have bubbles. My program is based on some of these fundamentals, one of which is our health depends on our relationship being healthy. For those of us that are in an intimate, committed relationship, when our relationship is going well, we have more mental space to be functional, to be productive, to be focused on our work. When we leave to go to work, or we, go into our office in our house, if we are still work from home, and we have had an argument with our spouse, whether a verbal argument or whether just a exchange of looks that is negative, we are distracted by it. We are bothered by it. We may have hurt feelings that sit in the pit of our stomach, and they distract us from being able to focus. They distract us from being able to be present with our kids. They cause us to be less patient with our kids. So having a healthy relationship is fundamental to the rest of our life going well. Negative relationships, and I won't bore you with the science, but there's lots of science about, single people, dating people, people who are in happy relationships, people that are in unhappy relationships, people that are divorced. They've ranked who is happiest and who is most unhappy, who has the most stress. Least stress, people in happy relationships. Close second is people who are happy single. Most stressed are people in unhappy relationships in terms of health problems. So being in an unhappy, unhealthy relationship impacts our health greatly. So learning how to create a proactive, healthy relationship, feeding our relationship intentionally, helps our health, our productivity, our parenting, our friendships, all areas of our life. So I am on a mission, as you can probably tell by my hand gestures and my craziness, to help people understand there are easy things you can do to feed your relationship every day that will pay off and reduce the amount of stress time you spend in your relationship. All right, that's the first part of the lecture over. It is much better and it is much more efficient to be proactive in your relationship than reactive. One of the things I say over and over, you can spend your time in your relationship investing in your relationship and preventing problems, or you can spend time in your relationship cleaning up problems. Those are your two options. And I want you to prevent problems rather than spend time in the pain and agony of reiterating, well, that's not what I meant, that's not what I meant, et cetera, et cetera. And so let me show you what I mean. We're going to go through this. All right. So for those in my presence in the workshop, take a minute. Let's just take a minute and come into the space and connect together. You're going to invest in your relationship now, and I want you to do that feeling as connected as you can. So find a seated position where you are facing each other. Come into the space, look at each other. You don't need to see me at all. And just take a few minutes, few deep breaths together. Breathing in and breathing out. And just come into gentle eye contact with each other. In gentle eye contact, you are not staring at each other. You don't need to have constant eyes open eye contact at all times. You are gently putting your eyes on your partner in a relaxed way. And if you need to look up and look down, that's fine. Just gently come into eye contact. And so as you look over at your partner, focus on what you see at the level of their physiology, their physical sense. Can you see them breathing? Can you notice them as a human in a body that is coming along, heart beating, blood flowing, breathing? Notice them as a human being at the physiological level. And then as you look at them, see their See them on their emotional level. Notice the places on your partner's face and in their body where they show sadness, anger, joy. And can you feel into their emotional state just a little bit in this moment? Whether they've had a long, hard day, whether they're tired, whether they're a little intimidated or anxious or uncomfortable being here. Can you feel into that? And then next, see them from the perspective of their thoughts. Are they a fast thinker? Are they contemplative? A person who contemplates the universe? Are they a daydreamer? Do they think before they leap? Or do they take a long time to make a decision from a very thoughtful place? Just imagine into it, recognize it, and appreciate it. And finally, see them from the level of their behaviors. Picture them during their day, all of the little things that they do, whether they're going to work, whether taking care of the family, whether they're running around, busy between clients. Just bring to mind all they do to contribute to your life together. And as you imagine their physiology, their emotions, their thoughts, and their behaviors, can you, without speaking, just in your mind and in your face, can you appreciate them for all they do, all it takes in all of those levels to share life together? And even if you're just imagining your appreciation, can you focus on that as you look over at them? That I appreciate you, even for all the ways that are challenging. I appreciate you. So, this exercise of breathing together and just imagining into your partner is always available to you. You'll get the replay of this if you're here live. It's at, I don't know what minute it is, at like minute 11 or something. This started. You can replay it, or you can just sit together and think through it. And this is a way of connecting, regulating with each other, and taking a moment to just be together. It feeds your relationship to do something like this. So I want to remind you to use this as we go forward. This will help you in what we're going to talk about today. So you can stay looking at each other. You can look over at me. You will get these slides or you'll get this replay. So you'll get to watch it again if you want to. So you don't need to be taking notes or anything. So what is defensiveness? Defensiveness is a biological response to feeling attacked. I'm going to say that again. Defensiveness is a biological response to feeling attacked. No one chooses to become defensive. It's not a choice of, I think I'm going to be defensive when my partner gives me feedback or when we're talking about something difficult. I think it seems like a good idea to become defensive. It's an involuntary automatic response, and it happens on a physiological level. We are wired for this. This is the first thing that I say because this is the first thing I want you to remember, that this is an involuntary response. Knowing this allows you to go, all right, how do we prevent this? How do we work with this reality? You are each wired differently in your biological responses, and we're going to be going into this in greater detail. Having an understanding for how your particular partner, as well as how you as an individual respond to perceptions of threat, perceptions of attack, Knowing this, you can learn to work with this differently. The part of the brain that is interpreting and managing threats, that is reading the environment, reading your partner, reading each other for threat, reading whether you're a threat or not, is very fast. It exists at the back of the skull. It's in our emotion center, regulates, and then it triggers a regulation of blood flow, which is why our volume gets bigger, our words get faster because our heart rate is increasing, our oxygen, our breathing is increasing. We may feel blood flow go to our hands. We may make fists when this happens. All kinds of physiological things happen. That part of your brain is much faster than the part of the brain that forms words and articulate words. And so the capacity to reflect on that in that moment is compromised, which is why you need each other to create a better dance and a better pattern around this. If your partner gets defensive, if you get defensive, it is because that part of your brains have been triggered into a fight or flight response, into I'm in trouble, I need to get out of trouble, and to be very simplistic about it. That's what a defensive reaction is. No, I didn't do it. No, you're wrong. I didn't do that. Whatever is the defensive response is a minor, depending on how big the defensive response is, fight or flight reaction. So that's the first piece I want you to hear. And again, if you have questions, post them in the chat and I will come back to them. And we're just at the beginning, so we're going to be going into greater depth in all of this. Okay, so why is defensiveness present in our relationship when we love each other and we are committed to each other and I'm supposed to be your best friend and your favorite person? Why do I cause you to feel defensive, or why do you cause me to become defensive? And so there are sort of two categories of reasons that this goes down. Within the relationship, there's an absence of safety in the relationship or in the conversation. And I don't mean physical safety, though if that is ever present, if there is ever an absence of physical safety, it's a bigger problem than defensiveness. You're talking about literal physical safety, but I'm talking largely about emotional safety. The safety that says, I'm okay here to be myself. I don't have to be perfect to be loved here, to be accepted here. That's what is missing, that feeds a defensive cycle and pattern within the relationship. So that's one thing. One of you or both of you do not feel safe, loved, and accepted in the relationship. So to go a little bit deeper, you don't feel like your opinion is okay. It's okay to have the opinion. It's okay to have the thoughts. It's okay to have the way of doing things. And so you feel the need. You are sensitive to feeling like you have to defend and protect your way of being. Can be another reason within the relationship is that there's a history of criticism, fighting, lack of appreciation in the relationship. So maybe early on in your relationship, or, for a period of time of great stress in your relationship, one or both of you got very critical and a pattern developed around criticism, around parenting, for example, around housework, for another example, around finances, around in-laws, around hobbies, friends, whatever. There became a pattern in the relationship of hostility or anger or criticism that built this in where, and I'm going to go into this in greater detail later, when even the very mention of your mother, your partner says your mother, even just your mother called, and we have created a pattern such that without it going any further, a defensive response brings itself in. Do you like how I'm like leaning in like a dragon or something, trying to physically demonstrate defensiveness? So that history can create a pattern that in order to fix, you need to unspool that pattern. And we're going to be talking about that. And this is part and parcel of the Fired Up Marriage Accelerator. I teach all of this live and through the lessons that I teach all of this in greater detail. So this is a short talk. If you want more, reach out and I can give you access to that. And then finally, within the relationship, there are communication challenges that have never been addressed fully. I don't feel like I can be honest. Um, I have to go around the book. I have to beat around the bush in order to say what I need to say. I don't feel listened to. We don't know how to really listen to each other. And so this pattern has taken hold where one or both of us gets defensive in conversation or in conflict. So those are some of the reasons that within the relationship, defensiveness is present. Beyond your relationship, people with an experience of pervasive criticism growing up, that they were continually being told they were bad or wrong or whatever negative feedback they're getting, those folks tend to develop defensive or are more sensitive to criticism and become defensive more easily. So if you know that either you or your partner grew up with that, that would explain part of the reason that there is sensitivity and there is defensiveness in either of you. Secondly, there's a history or present tense experience of anxiety, depression, or PTSD. Those are three mental health issues that create a sensitivity to feedback that manifests as defensiveness. Health problems can also feed that. If one of you has a chronic pain illness, if one of you has a chronic digestive issue, something like that, where you don't feel well continuously, that makes your whole system more sensitive. And so you may be more primed to become defensive because you don't have capacity to process things fully. Excuse me, I have to be sipping water because talking this much. And then finally, if either of you are considered a highly sensitive person, if you have neurodivergence, or if you have I just talked about health challenges, so I covered that above, but highly sensitive people who feel their emotions more on the surface, people who are artistic are an example of people who have greater access to their emotions. Their emotions are closer to the surface than other people. Some neurodivergent people also experience their emotions at a higher level or who are sensitive to stimuli more so than neurotypical people. And I don't mean that in a negative, positive way. Everybody has a different brain. Your job is to just understand your partner's brain. Those are all people that may have defensiveness at a higher level or be primed for defensiveness at a higher level. Why do I say all of this? Because I want you to understand the cause of this so that you can have more curiosity and compassion about the source. Because one of the challenges that takes hold is I try and give you feedback. I think because of love, because I want you to grow, and I think it would be helpful for you to have this information. You get defensive, then I get angry because I'm just trying to help. And then you get angry at me, and then we go round and round and round. That's without this understanding. If from that same place of love, I want to offer you feedback, but I recognize you've had a long day, you're tired, you've been complaining that your anxiety is a little bit higher, and we haven't really fed our relationship in a while, and so our communication's been missing. I might have some awareness that is now the right time to offer the feedback. I'm not sure. Or let's say I miss that and I offer the feedback and you get defensive. Knowing this, I might go, oh, yeah, they're tired. I probably shouldn't have offered that feedback right now. I get it. I know why. And I've shortened the negative interaction from a 2 interaction. I give feedback, you get defensive, it stops, from turning into a 15, 20 round re-explaining, defending round and round and round situation. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you have questions to any of this, post them and I'll answer them at the end. Okay. So what can be done? This is what you're really here for. You probably didn't need to hear me define all of that, but anyway, for the people in the back, I define it. So what can be done? Number one, accept that it is normal and it happens. I am a paid professional relationship expert. I've written a book with a whole chapter about defensiveness, and I get defensive. My husband gets defensive because sometimes I'm a jerk. It happens. Two humans sharing a life, two nervous systems sharing a life, you're going to bump up against each other. You're going to have strong feelings that don't match up. You're going to forget yourself. You're going to be a jerk sometimes. There is room in your relationship to screw up and clean up. So I want you to understand and I want you to accept that it's normal and it happens. Free yourself from that, oh, like lessen the shame or the struggle around it. Two, turn on your curiosity. This is incredibly powerful. Your curiosity, your interest, and your care about the cause for your partner and for yourself, more than the irritation and shame about its presence. Irritation with the other person, shame with yourself. Again, I'm a therapist, paid professional. I've done a whole lot of emotional work on myself to be a good therapist, because I think all therapists should. I still get defensive. If the paid professionals get defensive, it's okay that you do. Having curiosity and interest, like, ooh, what's going on here, helps lessen the intensity of the response and brings in care to your partner. Oh, I triggered something in you. Let's figure out how to get out of this. Huh. You've just lessened the intensity and the negativity of it. Here's one that's going to be hard. Focus on your role in the dynamic rather than demanding change in your partner. Every dynamic in relationship is 50-50. Any defensive reaction takes two people for it to happen. And I'm probably going to say this multiple times today. You have a role, your partner has a role. I'm not saying anybody's wrong or bad, but we do not have the capacity to change another person. I'm a change agent. My whole job is to help people change, but I'm merely a facilitator. I'm merely a teacher and a coach. The person themselves has to want to change and has to do them changing. So you can only influence your own behavior. You can't make another person do anything. Any of you are parents, you know that. You can't make your kid put on shoes. They have to put them on for themselves, or you end up in 4 hours of fights. Um, any of the leaders out there that have employees, you can't make your employees do things. They have to decide to do it for themselves. So you will have much more productivity impacting change in yourself than you will in your partner. You can inspire change, but you can't force it. Okay. Finally, lastly, what you can do is be a detective. This is where it can be kind of fun, and learn the pattern. Are there subjects that I or my partner are more defensive about? What are they? And make a list. Are there times of day when this happens more often than not? Are there states of mind? I'm someone who gets hangry, and my husband has wisely learned not to give me feedback when I'm hungry or tired. Just don't do it. It doesn't go well. Just learn these patterns so that you can be proactive about when you time your feedback. If this sounds annoying and difficult, you just want it to not be a problem, I'm doing my job well, because there is a lot about being married and being in a committed relationship, whether you're married or not, that is very annoying. And I do want you to accept that being married is annoying. Sharing a house, a life with someone who does the dishes differently, who is louder than you, whatever it is annoying. And learning to accept that is part of what will make your life easier. Okay. So let's go deeper. The things you want to do to help this, the first thing is learn to regulate each other. What you did, the opening exercise we did, is a regulation exercise. When you breathe together, you're learning to sync up your nervous systems positively. You're using eye contact, you're using breathing, you're using presence and attention to sync up your nervous systems in a positive sense. Learning to regulate and work with each other's nervous systems as they are rather than as you would like them to be is incredibly powerful. So practice this. Practice understanding as you play detective of the sensitivity your partner has and what you do that helps them regulate their sensitivities. You obviously have a responsibility in learning to regulate yourself, but the benefit of being partnered is that we have someone with us that can catch our negative states faster than we can catch them ourselves. Because as I talked about at the very beginning, the part of our brain that signals, that sends us into fight or flight, is much faster than the part of our brain that realizes we're defensive. We become defensive faster than we know we're defensive. Our partner will see fight or flight building in us faster than we will recognize it. Learning to catch that and soothe, whether it's handing your partner a glass of ice water, very regulating, encouraging them to take a breath, inviting them on a walk, giving them a hug, whatever are the antidotes for your partner. And again, I do a huge deep dive and teach this in Fire It Up, but learning how to do this is incredibly powerful for preventing defensiveness. Because if you feel like you are a team and you are working with each other to support each other, you will be less likely to feel attacked by your partner, even when they offer you difficult feedback. Learn and care about each other's states and experiences. And this is piggyback onto that. So when your partner struggles, when they are at their happiest, what brings them to happiness, what brings them to stress, learning those things is your ally in learning what to use when they're struggling. And learning, again, my husband very wisely learning, don't give Carolyn feedback when she's angry. It doesn't go well. He still gives me the feedback. I still get it. It's not like he doesn't tell me, hey, that was really annoying what you did. But he times it in a way that it actually works, because couples waste a lot of time because they just insist, well, I'm going to say it when I feel it. I'm going to say it how I feel it. And if you get defensive, that's your problem. Actually, it's our problem, because if you get defensive, we now have a problem together. So lots of couples are like, it's not my problem if you're sensitive. Well, you're living with it, so it is. And if your relationship struggles, you both struggle. Okay. Create safety in your relationship. Find ways to make your partner feel safe and accepted and loved for who they are, not just what they do. That will feed your relationship and help prevent defensiveness. And then finally, creating balance in communication. If you are offering, and this I share with both of you present, if you are offering more negative feedback than positive, your communication may not be balanced. If you are asking for more than you are giving, your communication may not be balanced. So making requests, hand me the salt, do the dishes, do that more than you're saying, I love you, I'm grateful for you, how can I help you, how can I support you? I'm so proud of that thing that you did. I'm so grateful for that thing you did. If you're not balancing that was really annoying with that was really great, you're feeding the problem. So keeping an eye to balance in communication not only addresses defensiveness, but also the burnout that can happen in relationship. All of this are ways to feed your relationship positively, so that you are putting money in the bank, water in the well, so that when things get hard, you can make a withdrawal and not expect your relationship to go to shit. All right. So this training, this workshop, is for both the receiver and the giver of feedback. Some of it may sound like it's more pointed toward the person that is giving the feedback, of how to give feedback well, but it is intended for both of you. Because, I mean, like I said at the start, it takes two for there to be feedback. It takes two for there to be defensiveness. And you can hear this to understand, as I say, be sensitive to how you say something. And you can think about, yes, when my partner says things with that tone, I don't react well to it. So if you hear me focusing on one and you are the other person, you're the person in the relationship that gets defensive more often, think about it in both seats. And think about always where your work is in understanding yourself. Whether you are someone that triggers defensiveness in your partner, what do you need to understand about yourself, about why that happens for you, that you continually do things that cause a negative reaction in your partner? What is that for you? And if you are the receiver and you're the person that gets defensive, what's happening for you? What could you work on to create more empowerment and a better reaction around that? And how can you share with your partner about your experience in this same way? So talking together about, I think I get defensive because I feel vulnerable. I think I think I trigger defensiveness because I'm so scared that it's going to go poorly that I just blurt it out and I'm not as thoughtful as I need to. How can you talk about this in a way that is sharing and feeding of your relationship? Let me know anywhere in the comments if any of this is not making sense. All right. Here are some key things to know. Our brain is wired for both love and war simultaneously. And I mentioned this at the start. We are wired for connection and we are wired for survival simultaneously. We need both things. Our brain is geared toward keeping our system alive, in keeping the system working efficiently, and is protecting us at all times. We are hypervigilant to signals of threat in our environment, threat to our well-being or safety. And the brain that's doing that doesn't know the difference between often doesn't know the difference between real threat and perceived threat. You want to help each other with that. Simultaneously, it is wired to connection. Babies, when they're born, completely dependent on other human beings, and their whole physiology is geared toward getting the attention and getting the care from the caregivers. They smile, they coo, they cry, they do all kinds of things to get our care because that is the wire. I mean, that wiring's both towards survival and connection, but we are dependent on other beings. We need connection as much as we need oxygen. And there are all kinds of studies. The Surgeon General did a whole research, a whole study. Now I'm forgetting what that's called, about loneliness and the impact on health. We need other human beings. We need the connection with each other. Those two opposing drives cause us to get into trouble because if I trip you into survival mode, into defensiveness, which is a survival mechanism, remember, to a perception of threat, because I am trying to connect with you. I'm trying to bring us closer by giving you feedback, if that's what I think I'm doing. Now we're in opposition to each other. What you want to do is learn to recognize in your partner what it looks like when they're seeking connection and what it looks like when they're in survival mode, and how to read that properly and respond to it properly. It doesn't mean you need to alter everything in your whole body. If your partner wants connection and you don't, it doesn't mean you have to do everything your partner wants, but you don't want to shame them. You don't want to diss them. You want to clearly and with love say, I appreciate that you want to connect with me right now. I don't really have capacity for it right now. I see that you're offering me some feedback to help me grow, and it really isn't landing with me well. There are all kinds of ways that you can recognize this, acknowledge this without, completely giving up yourself, because you both get to be yourselves in the relationship. So learn to recognize what it looks like when your partner's in survival mode versus connection mode. Another thing to know, we automate each other. In that part of our brain that is trying to be as efficient as possible, we automate things. I don't need to ask you you don't need to think about what 1 + 1 is. Like, what's 1 + 1? Your brain automatically spits out it's 2. That is something that's been automated. Language is automated. For those of you that driving becomes automated because our brain can't be thinking about all of these things all the time because it takes up too much energy. We have to focus on the things that we need our brain to be actively thinking about. We automate each other. So when we live with each other, our behaviors become automated. If I ask you if you want popcorn, I've automated that you're going to say, of course I want popcorn. Or if I say, what time are you going to be home? You're going to get a little annoyed, or whatever it is. We automate each other's behaviors continually. This is great because it makes things efficient. It's not so great in a couple of ways. One of which, in the topic of this little webinar, is that we automate the negative things that we do. When we've had a pattern of fights about the laundry, for example, We automate it before it even happens. If it's laundry day, I could wake up cranky because I know we're going to struggle about this. And so in being cranky, then I am passive aggressive about the laundry even before you've said anything to me. So understanding that that gets automated, I want you to slow the process down. Look at the ways we have the same fight about money every month. How can we understand this pattern, understand what it's about for you and what it's about for me, and how to create a new pattern around our conversations about money, sex, the kids, whatever it is. You're automating each other. So learning the patterns and how to create new patterns will help you rewrite the scripts that exist around defensiveness. Or you can keep doing it the same way. Okay. Similar to automating each other, things get wired into our brains. There are certain words, and I did a little Instagram, TikTok reel about this. I think they're called reels on TikTok. I think they're just TikToks. I'm so old. I shouldn't be allowed to use the TikTok. There are certain words and phrases that our brains program in. Our name gets programmed into our brain. So when we hear someone yell our name from across the room, we have a physiological response. Gerald! We have a startle reflex. So I always coach clients, do not yell each other's name from across the room unless it's done with love. And even then, make sure that your partner's okay with it, because there is if I use my partner's full name, he's Jeff. If I say Jeffrey, he has a negative response to that physiologically. So our names are wired in. I love you is wired in. I'm sorry is wired in. Those are positive examples. Negatively, the question why is wired in and almost universally elicits a negative response, because the implication that is made by the majority of people is, what's wrong with you? I like ice cream. Why? It implies there's something wrong with that answer. So leading questions with why is one of the things that for most people elicits a defensive response. Learning for each other what phrases and words elicit negative responses is really critical. Some people are wired to like open-ended questions. Some people are wired to like closed-ended questions, or to not like one or the other. Let's see. And then now I'm going blank on the examples, but how was your day for some people is really stressful versus did you have a good day? Less stressful. Did you have a good day? For one person may feel like I'm only allowed to answer yes or no. It's more complicated than that. And so they may have a negative response. Knowing for each other which it is, which you prefer, is really helpful to getting a positive response. That wouldn't necessarily be a defensive response, but it would be a negative response. So I'm sharing this, I'm going beyond this. Another word that is very tricky to use and that almost always elicits a negative response in the defensive realm is the word you. Leading a sentence with you, followed by a description, you did it wrong, you always, all these sorts of things often elicits a negative response. Versus, I was thinking that it would be helpful if you did it this other way. It allows the brain to sort of relax, whereas you leads us to go on high alert. If you're giving positive feedback, you're so great. Obviously, the brain's going to relax. But if it's you're doing it wrong, the brain takes it to 11. Little Spinal Tap reference for you. So you want to know for your partner what are the ones, and in playing detective and finding the patterns, you want to be able to identify what are the words that my partner pretty consistently responds negatively with. Information is power. It will help you know. And everybody's a little bit different. There are some universal, and those you want to, like why, those you want to be really careful with. And I just literally in the session right before this workshop was helping a couple with this very thing, and they hadn't realized it. Okay. Everyone has another key piece. Everyone has a way that they best receive feedback. And I call this, and I don't call this, this was created by in dialectical behavioral therapy. It's called the validation change continuum. At one end, we have validation, you're great. At the other, we have a change request, please pick up your socks. Everybody needs some proportion of validation to a change request. You're great, you're great, you're great, please pick up your socks, you're great. Now the feedback can go in positively versus please pick up your socks. Zero validation, change request. I'm someone, I grew up, and it has a lot to do with culture, upbringing, all that sort of stuff. I grew up in New York with a very direct speaking, a little bit gruff, a little bit, word comes to mind is brutal family. So I can take feedback with very little validation, most feedback in certain circumstances. And if I'm hangry, I can't. But I really like feedback. I really like constructive feedback. So when people give me feedback, I'm happy with that. Other people need a fair amount of validation to a change request. It's not good or bad. It's just the way we're wired. You want to know this for your partner. If your partner needs a high level of validation to a change request, you want to give it to them, because otherwise you're spending time arguing about the change request without having done it. It's much more efficient. It's much more effective. It's much more connecting to know and use what works for your partner. So tell them thank them for something they did. Tell them how much you appreciate it, and then say, hey, could you also sweep the floor differently, whatever it is. And then know your own to understand why you react the way you do, and have, a conversation of, wow, I think I need some validation, not before, but after. Excuse me. Scratchy throat. Okay. Next key thing. You can't get blood from a rock. I don't know where that expression came from, quite honestly. Is that from like Macbeth or something? I don't know, but that was the expression that came to mind. If you're not feeding your relationship and your partner love, kindness, kudos, gratitude, how are you expecting them to respond well to requests? If all you are feeding them is, please do this, please do that, don't do this, don't do that, and they're not feeling appreciated, loved, accepted, supported in their life, you are set up for there to be a problem in your relationship. So make sure to balance the feedback that you're giving with kudos. It's separate from the, in the moment of making a change request, in the moment of giving feedback, to prime the pump, if you will. This is about sort of the overall balance of your relationship. And if you aren't feeling fed, if you aren't feeling loved and accepted, if you're feeling like all you get is criticism, how are you expecting yourself to respond positively to feedback? All right, I already went over this, but you can only change yourself. You cannot change your partner. Your partner has to change their partner. You can encourage and support. You can inspire and motivate, often by your own example. But negative feedback, needling, repeated requests, shame do not work. Pressure, threat. If you don't change this, I don't think I can do this anymore with you. I don't want to go with you to the party if you're not going to. None of that works to get your partner to be motivated and inspired to change, versus encouragement, versus I believe in you. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so thankful for you. That inspires change. What if you're not feeling grateful? What if you're not feeling positively about your partner? I encourage you to, that usually indicates things are out of balance. There may be burnout in your relationship. If you can't access gratitude and positivity about being in relationship, you both have some work to do to take stock of, why am I in the relationship if I don't feel any positive feelings, if I don't feel any gratitude? Moment to moment, when your partner is irritating the crap out of you, I recognize you might not be feeling access to your loving feelings. Totally normal. One of the superpowers that my healthiest couples have, and one of the things I help couples develop and fire it up, is the capacity to hold both positive and negative feelings at the same time. This is the superpower my healthiest couples have, to be irritated and also know that you love your partner. Because anybody who's in a partnership for any period of time knows that you can love and hate someone at the exact same time. Living with another human being is a living example of that. They can be irritating as all get out and the cutest thing in the world. And I really want to encourage you to foster the positive and the negative simultaneously and learn how to express that. It also helps with defensiveness. Okay. Final reminder. Words can lie. We can say we're fine when we're not. We can say we like something when we don't. Bodies never lie. And one of the things that I was encouraging you to do in a sneaky sort of way in that earlier exercise was notice each other at all different levels. That is what I want you to train yourselves to do, because you want to be tuning into what your partner is communicating both verbally and non-verbally. Verbally, they can tell you something that isn't true. And I'm not talking about lying. I'm talking about, I mean, it is lying, but we can say things are fine. We can say we're not unhappy. If your partner is giving any indication that they are, I want you to make their lived experience and your care for them more important than just sweeping it under the rug. It doesn't mean you need to be processing things at all times. I don't want to do that, despite being a therapist and spending my whole professional life processing things with people. When I get home, I don't want to beat the shit out of conversations all the time and talk about our emotions. You don't need to be doing it all the time. You can acknowledge, I see that you're upset. I see you don't look like you're as happy as you're saying you are. I really care. I really want us to find time to figure out what's up for you. And I don't have capacity right now. Or right now I'm going out the door to do this thing that I have. You don't need to be doing it all the time, but I do encourage you to express your care for whatever your partner is expressing. Believe your partner when they look upset. Make that more important than what you're saying. And we're going to go into this in greater detail. And you are going to get the chance to practice this. I'm in my head. Okay. And then believe yourself when you feel upset. We do not control our feelings, only what we do with them. And believe it or not, when you believe your feelings, when you give credence to them, when you allow yourself to feel what you feel, it actually makes them go away faster. When you don't try to shame yourself out of feeling it or shame the fact that it exists at all, it helps them go away. Okay. All right. So let's do a quick exercise to demonstrate. Are you guys sick of seeing pictures of me and Jeff? Aren't we so cute? I'm so obnoxious. All right. So turn and face each other once again. Take a couple of breaths. And now, without words, make each other smile. Okay. And now, without words and without discussing it, think about something your partner does that's really irritating. Drives you crazy. No words. And imagine into the fact that they're human and they're doing the best. Their brain is doing its best to get them through this life in the healthiest way possible. And maybe they didn't learn, they weren't taught perfectly. Maybe, in fact, they were taught really poorly and harmfully. But imagine into and remember that they're doing their best to live a life and do it well. And now, without words, make your partner laugh. In the screen, I can only see one person. And it's funny to see one person start laughing. So there's success happening. So in this moment, I took you very briefly from positive to negative to positive again. They all exist in the same framework. And I don't mean to imply that it's just that very, very simple. It's just that easy. But I do want to show you that in a 10-second exercise, you are having the gamut of emotions. You're making each other smile and being in connection. You're thinking of things that drive you crazy, probably a little disconnection. Then you're imagining into their humanity and their effort to get through life. Maybe you're accessing a little bit more care and love for each other, and then you're laughing together. You can have this same experience in any conversation. All you have to do is bring that intention to mind. Bring care to mind as you share feedback. Bring care to mind as you receive feedback or as you prepare to have a conversation. It helps. And you can move between states quickly and with care whenever you want to. Well, that's an over-exaggeration. You're not always in control of it, but you can bring more intentionality to this process. Okay. That was just a brief interlude. What we call a state change. So defensiveness is conflict, right? You want something, your partner doesn't like the way that you said it, you're in conflict. Learning to reduce defensiveness is in learning healthier conflict. And that's the next piece of this. So we're going to talk about fighting fair. Step one of this is focusing on what the goal of the argument is. What's the goal in defensiveness of the feedback? And can you make it a win-win? Can you frame it as, I want both of us to walk away from this interaction feeling good about it? Focusing on that puts the relationship at front and center rather than, I just want to say what I want to say. So you create a goal for the outcome of the conversation that takes care of at least some part of what you each need. I want him to feel good. I want me to feel good at the end of this conversation. You go into sharing negative feedback, sharing a problem that you're having, it's going to go better. So, for example, setting off with a collaborative goal. What are we doing for this weekend? Let's create a plan so we each get to do what we want to do. That's a we process that is focused on both of you getting something good out of it versus I'm playing golf all day on Saturday, so you need to look after the kids. That's going to often elicit a conflict and a defensive response. What? What do you mean? Why are you deciding that for me? How do you get to do that? Now you're in a response. That may not be the kicker. Then that response back may kick off the defensiveness. If you go into it with a shared goal, you're going to reduce the chances of defensiveness. So that's step one or tip one. Put your relationship above being right or winning the conversation, above getting exactly what you want out of the conversation. You do this by being on the lookout for signs of rising arousal. That face flushing is a signal that our nervous system is rising. Blinking increases, breathing speeds up, our mouth can get dry. What are the signs of your partner's rising arousal or your rising arousal? And I don't mean in the fun sense of arousal. I'm talking about nervous system arousal. And do you know what your partner looks like when their nervous system is rising up? This is key to preventing defensiveness, because if you notice that they don't look good when you're going to go give them feedback, it will help you prevent it to go, now is not the time. And can you put their well-being, the fact that they don't look great, they look tired from their workday, they look haggard from dealing with the kids, they look haggard from dealing with clients all day, can you put that more important, your care for that reality above your need to say what you need to say in that exact moment? That's the name of the game. That is the prescription to both of you. I am not saying this to just one of you. I am saying this to both of you, because one of the responses I get regularly is, well, if I'm doing that and my partner isn't, yes, you have a problem in that case. You both have to be working together, or you're going to have a non-reciprocal situation and one person's going to burn themselves out, and then you've got a problem. So, example, partner is crying. I see that the conversation is upsetting you. I want to find a way to talk about that isn't hurtful to you. It's not it's find. a way to talk about that isn't hurtful to you. I can never see typos until I'm presenting the talk. Versus ignoring the crying and continuing to talk, or applying, oh, don't be so sensitive. Why can't I give you feedback? All right, now I'm just piling on the negative stuff. So you want to put your relationship first and your partner's care first before being right or winning the conversation. You want to focus on the problem, not the person. So in this, you are putting both of you on the same side of the tennis court and the problem on the other side of the tennis court, rather than you guys are on opposite sides of the field. Now I've mixed my sports metaphors, as I am wont to do because I'm not a sporty person. Put yourselves on both sides of the against the problem. The laundry, for example. And imagine together, what are our needs for this conversation? What are her needs? What are my needs? What are his needs? Et cetera, et cetera. Put yourselves both on the same side of that conversation so that you are aligned and we want a better outcome for this. If their response is too strong, if they get defensive, how can you frame that as a we problem rather than a they problem? If you have too strong of a response, how can you make that an us problem versus a me problem in terms of shaming yourself? Example, I'm frustrated about the laundry. Can we figure out a better system? Versus, you never do the laundry. That becomes a you problem. I always have to tell you, why can't you do it like I say to do it? All that sort of stuff. That helps you staying on the we. Can we figure out a different system? I don't want you to do this in a gamey sort of way. Sometimes unmute. I don't know. My internet just shit the bed. I'm really sorry. I'm still recording, it looks like. Share screen. Defy defensiveness. Present. Nope. Share. There we go. Whew. I'm very sorry about that. I lost somebody. You guys hung in there. I'm really glad. That was very weird. All right. Do you need me to signal me if you need me to do this whole slide again? Did I cut off like through the whole thing, or am I good to go to the next slide? Good. Okay. Sorry about that. Boy, that sucked. That's never happened to me before. Okay. Process versus content. In any conversation, two components, process and content. Content are the facts, the words that you're using. You never do the laundry. The facts, the data, the logistics of the conversation, the what, the who, what, when, where, and how. It's who, what, where, and when. The why is the process, the meaning and emotions underneath it. Statement, you never do the laundry. That's the content. Process is, I don't feel helped out. I don't feel like our housework is fair and equitable. Couples fight and get defensive about the content much more than they fight about and get defensive about the process. So in learning to fight effectively, I want you to focus on the process rather than the content. So as you are hearing feedback that may be hard to take in, focus on what your partner needs you to hear. You don't feel like I'm doing enough. You don't feel helped. You don't feel supported. You don't feel whatever. And trying to clarify what their felt experience is of whatever feedback they're giving you. If they're already telling you, I'm sad that you're never home, okay, you're feeling sad. But focus on that more than going into the content. I'm sad that you're never home, but I was home last weekend. That's going to content. Staying focused on, you're really missing our connection time. Are you feeling neglected? Stay curious about the process. That helps diffuse defensiveness. And it also, if you focus on that, it triggers less defensiveness because the facts can be debated, but people's experience is their experience and it isn't really debatable. Okay. All right. Other common errors in fighting and conflict, passive aggressive phrasing. Let me think of an example. Maybe you guys have one that comes to mind. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I know you don't really care about the laundry anyway. When you're really saying, I'm unhappy with you. These sort of trying to soften things while you're also like sticking it to each other triggers defensiveness and distrust at the same time. So try to clean up your communication in that way. Dirty requests, phrasing or requests that are implied to be for you when they're in fact for me. A silly example is I get you a microwave for your birthday because I want a microwave, or I offer to go out to dinner with you because I don't want to cook, or I don't want to eat your cooking, or whatever it is. These are dirty phrasing that confuse the brain and make us, they feed a problem with trust because it's not entirely honest. So if you have a request to make, figure out how to make that request without saying it's for something that it isn't. Like, this is for your own good. This is for your own good. Well, is it really? And so work to make your requests and your feedback clean. Absence of eye contact is a real challenge because you miss the signals that your partner goes into distress. So when you're having emotional conversations or conversations where there might be a problem, be looking at each other so that you can catch and take care of it and make your relationship more important. If you're not looking at each other, you're more likely to miss it and keep going when there's an injury that has happened. On the same line, don't have conversations of emotion while driving together, or over text or email. And again, the couple I just was with earlier had a whole fight over text, and it went very, very poorly because our brain interprets things that aren't actually there. And we, as we can see, socioculturally, keyboard warriors are a thing. People feel much more emboldened to be meaner, nastier, harsher when they're typing rather than face to face. Okay. And then finally, ignoring body language cues, our own and our partners. If my nervous system arousal is rising, I need to pay attention to that because it's not going to go well if I force myself into a conversation past the point that I am able. You guys are troopers for sitting through. Okay. We're going to play relatively quickly with a topic. You guys got the email to pick a topic that is light, that sometimes triggers defensiveness. I'm going to walk you through these steps. You can practice it now, or you can do this another time. But these are the steps that I want you to go through that will help you cut through the defensiveness. And this is something that's with my couples that I coach, we walk through it live in real time so that they can get help and support slowing down the pattern. Okay, so you want to pick a topic where mild defensiveness comes up. And so what is the need in the communication, content and process? So if it's the socks, the way you and this is the second time today I've used this example, the way socks get put away. Do they need to get rolled or do they need to get folded? For example, the content is, the socks need to get folded properly. The process is, I don't feel taken seriously for my needs. This is obviously really fucking absurd. Now you've got the F-bomb coming out of me. It's late in the day. And welcome to who I am as a coach and a therapist. What is it about that is important to each of you? And what is it about that conversation that is painful for you? In identifying that, you know what to look out for. Okay. So that's the first step. Pick a topic and know what's what in that. Then what is the goal for the conversation? Is it just to get your partner to change? Is it that you just want what you want and this requires sort of internal honesty? Or is it that you want a healthier relationship? And so do a check-in with yourselves, each of you, in deciding what is it that I'm going for. And sometimes it's that we just want what we want. And I don't care if this upsets you, I'm just going to tell you. Sometimes that's true. And it's okay. It's not ideal if that's where you are all the time, but being honest about that helps you be real with each other about that. Rather than, again, that's the non-clean offering. If I really just want what I want and I don't really care if you like it or not, I want to go to ice cream. Let's go to ice cream. It'll be fun. It's not necessarily going to be fun for your partner. And so being honest about where you're at helps you guys be clear with each other and builds trust. Okay. Work on the problem, not the person. How can you make this a team conversation? How can you communicate, I believe in us and I believe in you, even as I give you critical feedback, or even as you give me critical feedback? How can I communicate that I believe in you? I think you're a great person, even though I think you were an asshole earlier today. That's the very blunt feeling that you're having. And then what do you need to look out for in their experience as you talk about this? If your partner gets defensive, focus becomes about that. And that's where it starts to snowball. You can prevent this when you are prevent this by investing time in knowing, all right, if they start to look away from me, that's the cue that we have a problem. And you can fix it. You can acknowledge I can see that this is hard for you to hear. So you want to, again, go back to making them feel more safe and accepted than getting what you want in a conversation, ideally. And then what do you need to look out for in your delivery? So first, in their experience, if they're sensitive to feedback about how they do the laundry, you want to look out for taking care of that. And then what do you need to look out for in your delivery? I can be, as is probably no surprise to anybody watching this, I can be pretty blunt and direct. Sometimes that works real well for my partner. Sometimes it doesn't work so well. And so I have to be aware that sometimes it's a time, there's room for directness, and other times I need to be a little bit more careful because he may be sensitive about this topic, or I may be particularly grumpy, and so I may come out more sharply than I need to. So knowing all of that, let's do it. You guys have a topic to run through this? Do you want to run through this live and get questions afterwards? Yes, you're nodding. Okay. So then you do it. One of you takes a turn of sharing something in this way, keeping all of this in mind. You can run through and talk about it together, or you can just say, "Hey, I want you to do the socks differently." You can just do it, and then you can talk about it. And then when we go into questions, you can ask questions about your experience of it. And then once you've done it, once you've exchanged feedback or heard each other, then you can check in. How was that for you? Did you notice anything feeling different? Okay, makes sense? All right, so try it, and then we will this is the almost second to last slide. So then I'll answer questions is up next. All right. All right. Looks like you got stuck. So I am going to hold on. All right. So there are no other questions. I'm going to move on, and then I'm going to turn off the recording so that I can just answer your direct questions about your experience in the exercise. Wait, I'm going to come back to this. Do you guys have other questions besides your experience in this? Let me unmute you. Unmute. Ask to unmute. Unmute yourselves. You guys can unmute yourselves. Let me know if you have other questions. And then I'll just do my final wrap up for everyone that's watching this at home, because it appears like you guys are the only ones currently watching this live. There were more people, but they didn't come back on once I lost them, once my Zoom went hit the bed.
Yeah.
All right. What other
I don't know. I can't think of any. Do you have any of it?
Okay.
No, I don't have any.
I feel like there are so many good questions to ask, but they're just not
That's
coming to me right now.
that's okay. You guys can always email me. You're on my email list. So if you think of something and like, oh, this came up, what do we do? Happy to chat
Okay.
by email or whatever. All right, let me wrap up. And anybody watching at home, feel free. The invitation is to everybody to send me questions, and I'll either answer them in email, or I might make a reel or go live on Instagram or whatever to answer the questions that come up. There's a lot of information. This is a topic that I spend hours helping couples on in my program. So I just crammed a whole lot in. You may have, like, brain matter dripping out of your ears as a result of all the information I just tried to stuff in your brains in an hour and a half. Okay. So thank you all for being here. This is my wrap up, and then I'm going to turn off the camera, and then I'll answer your questions about your experience in the exercise. If you want any more resources, you're on my email list as a result of coming from this. You can get one-on-one coaching. You can sign up for a consult if you want to chat with me about what your relationship needs. I'm happy to